Alright, so welcome back to my continuing analysis of Sunnova's second set of books, something that is also referred to as the hidden data, which I got my hands on because someone at Sunnova had a pretty epic screw-up with Microsoft Excel. And just to disclose this again, I do have a financial interest in this company's demise. I mean, obviously, if you manage to find something like this and it's somehow in the public domain, it would be kind of silly not to acquire financial interest in that company's demise. Alright, so let's do a very quick recap of where we left off. You are currently looking at the version of Sunnova's cumulative customer numbers that are in the hidden data. This hidden version of the numbers is far more detailed than the version shown to investors, and investors were never supposed to see this. But now it's on YouTube, so that didn't really go according to plan. And the cumulative customer numbers are just all of their customers over time added up. It's just the total amount. And by cross-referencing the numbers here in this hidden version with some of Sunnova's reported numbers, we've been able to nail down two key pieces of information here. The first key piece of information is that we know that these lease storage and loan storage customers must have batteries. You know, solar batteries, the things you can hook up to your solar system to store electricity so you can then use your solar electricity when it's not sunny outside. Yeah, we're talking about those things. The second key piece of information is that apart from the tiny number of unique battery loans, these lease and loan storage customers have all of the batteries. And lastly, another thing that is being hidden from investors is that Sunnova is using plugs to move these lease and loan storage customers around, and they're ultimately being reported to investors as solar customers. Now, when I looked at this, I had one question, and when I asked this one question, Sunnova's numbers became very concerning to me very quickly. And that question is, where are the PPA battery customers? A quirk of how residential solar works is that PPA batteries don't exist, but PPA customers with batteries do exist. And as far as I can tell, the way these customer numbers are being organized and categorized in the hidden data provides no way to accurately record PPA battery customers. So, a PPA, or a power purchase agreement, is an arrangement where the residential solar company puts a solar system on your roof and then charges you based on how much electricity that solar system produces. You can't get a PPA on a battery because batteries don't produce electricity, they only store it. So they can't charge you based on how much electricity it generates. You can sort of have something similar to a PPA on a battery, and you can price batteries into a PPA agreement, sort of do a package deal with the solar system, but it's really awkward and it's very rare, and Sunnova doesn't really offer it. I spoke to investor relations and they confirmed that like a few of these might sneak in through like third-party installers and then Sunnova buys them, but Sunnova's IR department confirmed it's basically a trivial number. So anyways, PPA batteries essentially don't exist, although they kind of sort of do just a little bit. But 99.9999999% of the time, you can get a PPA, a lease, or a loan on a solar system, but you can only get a lease or loan on a battery. So PPA solar customers who want a battery have to mix and match purchase options. So there are PPA solar customers that will have batteries, but the batteries won't be PPAs. And given this categorization, remember, all of the batteries are in the lease storage and loan storage and unique battery loan category, but the customers in the lease loan storage categories are being reported as standalone solar customers. Therefore, this would imply that of Sunnova's 119,865 PPA customers, substantially none of them have ever acquired a battery. But, I mean, obviously that's not true. Clearly, just logically, we would know that a decent chunk of Sunnova's PPA customers do actually have batteries. So there appears to be something funny going on with these numbers here. Like, we have a bit of a mystery on our hands. Where did all of the PPA battery customers go? Well, I could drag this out, but let me just cut to the chase and spoil it for the sake of simplicity. This is the first of many reasons I found to believe that the lease and loan storage customers are battery-only customers. Now, you might be thinking, why would that be a problem? Sunnova sells batteries, the battery customers have to go somewhere. Why is that a problem? The problem here is that it would mean that Sunnova has to be double counting customers. Now, before I ever made this video series, let's just say there were some people who were interested in having me explain the second set of books to them in private. And this is one of the main parts of the story where those people tended to get confused. And the reason they got confused is because this is actually a two-layered problem. The first layer makes it bad, the second layer makes it very bad. The first layer is that if these were battery-only customers, then that would indicate that Sunnova uses plugs to move battery customers into solar customer categories. In effect, the story the second set of books seems to tell is that if a customer gets a PPA solar system and a leased battery, that information is accurately recorded in the hidden data, but then it goes goes on a magic adventure through this spreadsheet and comes out being misreported to investors as one PPA solar customer and one lease solar customer. Solar systems are about twice as valuable as batteries, so this is already extremely misleading. The second layer to the problem is that it appears that the battery customers Sunnova is misreporting don't actually exist in the first place. The batteries themselves do seem to exist, yes, it's just that the battery customers are not actually customers. There's essentially two ways to count the customers here. You can count someone as a customer every time they make a purchase, so if I go to a store and make a purchase, and then I come back later and make another purchase, I count as two customers. I'm not sure if there's a proper name for this, but I call this the every purchase approach. That's option number one. Alternatively, you can use option number two, which is the unique premise approach. This is where you count customers once, and then if they buy multiple products or services, you still only count them as one customer, they're just one customer who gets more valuable. So if I go to the store and buy something for $100, and then I come back a week later and buy something for $150, then the unique premise approach would count me as one customer who is worth $250. However, if I did the exact same thing, make a $100 purchase and then come back and make a $150 purchase, but the store was instead using the every purchase approach, then they would count me as two customers with an average value of $125. Now, you might see the potential here for a company to pull a really nasty switcheroo on its investors. If a company tells everyone it is using the unique premise approach, but then it secretly uses the every purchase approach, then that would be really subtle, but it would also be extraordinarily misleading to investors. Not only would investors think that you have more customers than you really do, but most of the investors would probably assume that each individual customer you had was far more valuable than they actually are. And if a company did that, then that company would be reporting customers that do not exist. They would just be double counts of existing customers. And they would be doing all of it in a way that is just inherently really confusing to most people. While this is extremely important, it's also confusing, it's subtle, there's a bunch of semantics involved about what is or isn't a customer. It's just the sort of dirty trick that humans are really bad at catching. As far as I can tell, the hidden data says that is exactly what Sunnova is doing. How the customers are organized in the hidden data is consistent with the every purchase approach, not the unique premise approach. And the math seems to back this up. When I checked the numbers, what I saw was that if one Sunnova customer acquired two products or services, then at least most of the time, they would have to be getting inappropriately counted as two different customers. You could see how this would be a very big problem, but as I said, there's multiple reasons to think it happened. Asking where are the PPA battery customers led me to the first reason, but there are many more reasons. And the single biggest reason to think this happened is that there are written instructions in the second set of books to do it. So if you come along, I'll be happy to show you exactly where those are. So down here is the weighted average number of systems. Let me go ahead and bring these labels over. Sunnova claims it uses the unique premise approach to count as customers, but the way Sunnova defines its systems, remember systems and customers are not the same thing, the way Sunnova defines its systems is pretty similar to the every purchase approach. Here is the exact definition for systems if you are confused. It's essentially the every purchase approach, but only for stuff related to solar energy. More accurately, a system is defined as a customer plus any additional service obligation related to a solar energy system. To put it bluntly, if a customer has one battery, one solar system, Sunnova claims they would count as one customer, but count as two systems. So if Sunnova was publicly claiming that they used the unique premise approach, but then they were secretly using the every purchase approach or something close to it, then you would find evidence of them doing that right here. And oh boy, do we find evidence of them doing that right here. So just to start, if we go right here to cell EN567, we can see written instructions in literally plain English saying to include all of the customers in the system count. As in, these instructions say to use the same numbers in both places. Right off the bat, that's pretty strong evidence that Sunnova is secretly using the every purchase approach, even though it publicly claims to be using the unique premise approach. So now I just want to take a quick caveat, just so I can be absolutely crystal clear about something here. Sunnova's investor relations department did confirm that my understanding of their definition of a customer was correct, but when I asked them about their definition of a system, they did not respond. Now, there's a good chance that Sunnova will argue I misunderstood how their systems or customers are counted or whatever, something like that, but it's undeniable that their systems and customers are defined and calculated differently. And here there are just written instructions to ignore that and use the same numbers. And we can also prove that these instructions were followed. because unless something really strange has happened, the plain old average number of systems and the weighted average number of systems should be almost identical. So let's just go up here and take the average of all of the cumulative customer numbers and then add them up in the way the plugs indicate Sunnova normally would add them up. There's a reason I brought the color-coded version of the labels over. They come in handy. As you can see, it's an exact match. Now you might think, oh, what about the cache sales? And the answer is they actually have a plug that takes them out. They wind up getting double counted on the back end, and then they just take them out once time. So it comes out even, but just looks a little bit strange. But as you can see, these numbers are virtually an exact match. Sunnova is very clearly following these instructions and using the same numbers in both places. And you can further confirm this if you go back and take the average of every quarter and cross-reference against the weighted average number of systems in every quarter. You just go back as far as you want, it matches in every quarter. This is particularly useful for checking my analysis on the loan customers. The weighted average and the normal average for the loan customers looks a little bit different in this particular quarter because Sunnova offloaded 58,000 home security system loans, and I'll circle back to that later in the video, but doing something like that can produce a difference, but only in this one quarter. It matches in all the other quarters if you want to check them. I want to go on a quick tangent here. Now, there are a lot of reasons to believe that Sunnova is overcounting customers, but I also understand that many viewers might not quite understand them all. So I wanted to highlight this one particular reason in detail because it's pretty bloody simple. If you don't get anything else in this video, this is something you can hang your hat on. And here's the reason. If Sunnova's system and customer counts are the same, then as far as I can tell, it is mathematically impossible for them not to be misreporting at least one of those two metrics. Either the customers are overcounted or the systems are undercounted. Now, because there are literally written instructions to make this reporting error, the only conclusion I can personally draw from that evidence is that this reporting error was an intentional act. Overcounting customers would make Sunnova look better. Undercounting systems would make Sunnova look worse. Personally, I've never heard of a company that intentionally misreports numbers in order to make themselves look worse. Therefore, as far as I can tell, the only plausible explanation here is that Sunnova is overcounting customers. That's a short, easy to understand, self-contained explanation, and it's only one of many pieces of evidence that say the exact same thing. Now, this begs the question, how did no one notice this? Well, if you look at the last part of those instructions, it says to do something that would have the effect of hiding the double counting from investors. So let me show the note. There, a little bit of it gets cut off. It's visible in your earlier quarters. As you see, it says only show the total row. Here, let me make this a little bigger. See, now we can see the whole thing. It says only show the total row, and that would make it extremely difficult for anyone reading Sunnova's reported numbers to know that the system and customer counts are actually the same. The reason why is that, as far as I've been able to tell at least, Sunnova always reports system counts as a weighted average, but always reports customer counts as just the normal end of quarter raw number. What this means is that the total rows for the systems and customer counts will never match, even if they were calculated with identical numbers. Now, there are supposed to be more systems than customers, but only for the customers that are solar related. Some customers aren't solar related, so they shouldn't be getting counted as systems at all. And the importance of this, what this means, is that if you're trying to compare the totals row to see if the same numbers were being used in both places, and you only have the totals row, the data would be too noisy to prove that. You would have factors pushing the numbers up by an unknown amount, and factors pushing the numbers down by an unknown amount. So unless you have the individual subcategories like, lease, loan, other, for both the customer and system counts, you will have no way to know if the totals rows are close because Sunnova is using the same numbers in both places, or if they're close because it's a coincidence and they just happen to be close. The instructions in cell EN567 said to hide those subcategories, and those instructions were followed. That's why investors didn't know about this. So, for all practical intents and purposes, at least as far as I can tell, these instructions appear to say to misreport a number and then do something that would have the effect of making it so investors would have no practical way to know this error had occurred. Now, Sunnova might try to argue that the person who wrote this note was confused or something, but if you highlight it or click on it and you look on the bottom left of the Excel window, you can see that it's recorded as being written by Kat Scherer. That's the name of Sunnova's Director of Financial Reporting. So to recap, Sunnova is using the same numbers for system and customer counts even though they're not supposed to. There appear to be written instructions to make this mistake. These instructions also say to do something that would have the effect of hiding this mistake from investors. And the name of Sunnova's director of financial reporting somehow found their way onto those instructions. You know, that just seems really strange to me, and I'd be really curious to learn how all of that happened. It does get a little worse though, because if you break out the 10Q for the second quarter of 2024, you can see right here that Sunnova offloaded approximately 58,000 home security and monitoring loans to a different company. And those have absolutely nothing to do with solar. They're home security systems. But if we go over here, we can see that if we look at the unique accessory loans category, we can see that there's a drop of almost exactly 58,000 in that category. It's very obvious that these home security systems are being classified in the hidden data as these unique accessory loans. And this creates a few problems. First of all, this would imply that if everything was done properly here, virtually none of these 58,000 security system customers also had solar systems, because then this would be another place where customers would have gotten double counted. You're gonna have 58,000 people buy your home security systems and none of them also have your solar systems? Then how is this drop 58,000? This is yet another reason to think that Sunnova is double counting customers. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Second, if we go back down here to the system counts, we can see that, they were being counted as systems. Now remember, Sunnova's definitions of systems require that the systems be solar related systems specifically, or at least that's how I interpret this definition. These aren't solar related under any rational interpretation of the word related, they're home security systems. Now in this note in cell EN567, you can see that it explicitly says to include the unique customers in these counts. And just to avoid confusion, unique premise and unique customers are not the same thing. They're completely different things that just happen to have very similar sounding names. If we go back to the customer numbers, we can see that there are two categories labeled unique: a unique battery loan, a unique accessory loan. And until the home security systems were offloaded, virtually all of them, the vast majority of the customers labeled unique were the home security system customers. It's like 60,000 here, 3,000 here, 59,000 here, 2,800 here. Like, they're virtually all home security systems. Yet there are instructions to include the unique customers here anyways. So overall, what appears to have happened here, as far as I can tell, and this is my own personal analysis of the evidence, is that Sunnova appears to be counting ineligible customers as additional systems. And then they're turning around and reporting this inflated system count as an inflated customer count. That would perfectly explain why these two sets of numbers are identical when they shouldn't be. It would also perfectly explain why there are no PPA battery customers. You can't have an additional service obligation on PPA batteries because PPA batteries do not exist for all practical intents and purposes. So if you're switching the system counts with the customer counts, you're gonna not have the PPA batteries. You're gonna miss that category. So not only would this perfectly explain the irregularities I have shown you in this video, but it would perfectly explain many of the other irregularities I'm going to show you later on in this video series. So while this video started with a big question, it's gonna end with an even bigger question. And that question is, if I took these apparently misreported customer counts and ran around cross-referencing them with the other numbers Sunnova reports, what do you think I'll find? And the answer is that I found enough to fill a whole video series. The first two videos in the series were just necessary background so you can understand the far more concerning issues that the rest of this video series will focus on. And I'll be happy to show you exactly what I found so concerning. So subscribe and ring the bell if you don't want to miss that. And if you'd like and comment, the algorithm will promote this video to more people and help get this information out there.